We want a change for all, not just for one. Respect is a word no one knows. We yell and scream. We say words we don't mean. All we do is hate. Hate on others' ideas. We need to stand. No, we will stand. Understanding we cannot build on foundation that has been broken for years. Open-mindedness for the freedom we protest because our ancestors fought, so we need to fight as well. New beginnings of an era, of a world that we finally have the crown. We want to be kings and queens for once. Changing. All we need to do is change. Change the narrative. A quote by Malcolm X. A man who stands for nothing will fall for everything. We stand for Rosa Parks, Malcolm X, MLK. We run for Breonna Taylor, Tamir Rice, Marsha P. Johnson, and George Floyd.
Give it up for Zara and Bennett.
In the Mix provides artists with the opportunity to collaborate with students across all programs, explore art as activism, discuss social justice issues that are important to them, and showcase their own creative work. They'll be doing all of this within a podcast that they develop and produce themselves, and will be recording today.
Hi, I'm London. This is the In the Mix podcast where we talk about art, activism, and real-world problems from a different perspective.
Passion, emboldened,
fun,
empowered.
It takes a village.
Community expression.
Keep going.
Inspirational.
Opportunity. Motivational.
Captivating.
Heartfelt.
Aspire up to.
Unity.
In the mix, in the mix.
We have another very special guest for today's episode of In the Mix, Christian McBride. With his bold swinging style and robust sound, Philadelphia native Christian McBride is one of the foremost jazz bassists, composers, and arrangers of his generation. He has appeared on more than 300 recordings and is a 7-time Grammy Award winner. McBride has performed and recorded with a number of jazz musicians and ensembles, including Herbie Hancock, Chick Corea, Wynton Marsalis, Joshua Redman, and Ray Brown's Super Bass with John Clayton, as well as musicians from other genres like Sting, Paul McCartney, Celine Dion, The Roots, Queen Latifah, and James Brown. In 2020, McBride released an album dedicated to African American history, presenting musical portraits of Black civil rights icons such as Rosa Parks, Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., Muhammad Ali, and Barack Obama, narrated by the voices of Sonia Sanchez, Bondi Curtis Hall, Dion Graham, and Wendell Pierce. On November 11th, 2021, In the Mix attended a performance of this album at the New Jersey Performing Arts Centers, and it was incredible.
Admired the way he had changed his position from one of distrust towards whites to one of tolerance and building self-respect among blacks. His ideas were different than what many of us heard publicly, but his strong conviction of self-determination and pride energized blacks in economic development. The way he stood up. The way he stood up and voiced himself showed that he was a man.
Now for the interview. Our interviewers today are everybody here. Please introduce yourselves.
I'm Zara Ariel Bethea. I'm in the acting program, and something I'm passionate about is just equality for all and finally getting like equal rights that people say we have, but we don't. The first question I'm going to ask is, what motivates you to become a musician, and why did you choose jazz?
I grew up with two musicians in my family, my father and my great uncle, and they also happen to be bass players. So playing bass for me is following the family tradition. And in terms of falling in love with jazz, my great uncle, he played a bunch of jazz albums for me when I turned 11 years old. And because of his joy in listening to the music, I fell in love with jazz. And that's what got me into jazz.
I'm London Rogers. I'm in theater as well as Zara. And a social issue that really concerns me is Earth and how people treat the Earth. I like to say, as the Earth dies, we die with it. So please take care of the Earth. My question is, what musicians inspired you?
Well, when I first started getting into music, the music I heard around my house was soul music, classic soul music. A lot of James Brown, a lot of Motown, a lot of Aretha Franklin, Otis Redding, Gladys Knight and the Pips, all that great stuff from the 60s and 70s. So I always say that's my bone marrow.
Hi, my name is Anne Shokaye, and I am in the musical theater program. And something that really concerns me is that people need to have rights no matter their race. The question is, how did you get from wanting to be a musician to finding your success in your career?
As a musician, you have to realize what your role in the band is. You know, everybody has a specific thing that only they can do. Trumpet players can't do what piano players can do. Piano players can't do what drummers can do. You know, so everyone has their own secret power, you know. So as long as you understand what that secret power is and what your duty is to make the band sound good, I've always tried to pay attention to that. And you make people want to call you for another gig. And, you know, you make people want to call you for another gig by being amicable, you know, being pleasant to work with, being flexible, and understanding what you need to do to make that band work.
Hi, my name is Riley, and I'm in the musical theater program. One thing that I'm passionate about is racial equality. And my question was, how can music be a form of activism?
Mary Lou Williams was writing music that was dealing with the Black experience. Blues music that was written in the 20s and 30s was dealing with the Black experience and social injustices. Well, a lot of that music is kind of fun, right? But if you're not paying attention, you're going to miss the message. And the same thing with Duke Ellington. So he would always frame his music, his activist music, because he wrote this piece called Black, Brown, and Beige, which he called a tone poem of the Negro in America. He wrote that piece in the 1930s. Nobody was doing that at that time. You know, he was a very broad thinking and a very broad-minded person. And people like Max Roach and Sonny Rollins picked up on that. So they were able to take activism in their music and turn it into something with a goal. And that goal was to think of the world once we can get on the same page about what we can do together. It's like, you've done something to me, and now here's how we can fix it. And I think there's been a lot of popular activism that stops at, look at what you've done to me, as opposed to, let's see how we can fix this. And I've always been inspired by that music that says, this is what you've done to me, let's see how we can fix this. It's got to be the whole story.
My name is Kashara. I'm in musical theater, and what I'm concerned about is climate change. My question is, what inspired your album, The Moment Revisited?
I was asked to write a piece of music for an organization in Portland, Maine, back in 1998. It was for a Black History Project, and they asked if I would compose a piece. I could pick whatever subject, whatever theme I wanted. So the four people whose text I use in this piece were four people that really meant a lot to me growing up as a kid, learning about history, specifically Black history. Rosa Parks, Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And so this piece is centered around choice text of theirs. And I always enjoy playing this piece. It's always very inspiring to hear how timeless their wisdom was.
I am Bennett Honeyford. I am based out of the cold expanses of Saskatchewan in Canada. And I am happy to be here. Do you have any advice for aspiring musicians?
Get better. Always get better. You know, you have not arrived when everyone tells you how good you sound. That's not the end of the line. When you play your instrument, you know how hard you've worked. You know what you have left to figure out. You play your instrument, you sing your song, deep down inside, only you can say, I needed to work on blah, 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 blah. I didn't really quite get this. But then you got 500 out of 500 people telling you how great you sound. You can't listen to that. You gotta listen to that. You gotta listen to that voice you don't like to listen to, deep down in your soul that says, "Yeah, you sound all right, but go get back in that shed and work on those scales." You know. So as long as you always listen to that little voice telling you to get better, that's my advice. Listen to that little voice.
Yes. When did you, as a musician, turn into an educator?
I got asked to give a master class for the first time somewhere in the late 90s, around 97, I think it was. I was asked by Berklee College of Music to come up and give like a 6-part master class. I could design it any way I wanted to. And, I didn't really have much experience teaching. So I just did the best I could do. Everyone seemed to like it. And I thought I'll just, okay, maybe I'll do that again one of these days. And that was that. But word started to get around. I became artistic director of the Jazz Aspen Snowmass Summer Program. So everything started to happen sort of officially between 97 and 2000. Also became the first artistic director of the Brubeck Institute, which was then at the University of the Pacific. And so, yeah, I get great joy. I mean, I don't really consider myself an educator. I'm maybe more of a mentor. I mean, I know that's an educator, but when I think of people who really spend time, like my mother is a teacher, right? I don't do that. I can't do what she does. My mother is very meticulous with her lesson plans. She has a way in which she teaches. There's a certain thoroughness and a certain concept to teaching that I don't. I could do that. I tried to do that and didn't do well at it. I do think I have a lot of information from being on the road and playing with a lot of different people. But in terms of being an actual educator, like the way we would traditionally think of that word, I'm not that. I'm a perpetual student, and I try to hang with people who want to know information. Now, if that's an educator, I guess I'm one, but I wouldn't do well in the classroom on 5 days a week.
How can music make the world a better place?
So you ever hear a song that makes you feel really good if you're in a bad mood, or just the opposite? I think that music has the power to cleanse and heal and inspire the soul. There's so many different types of music in the world. It's literally impossible to hear it all. You hear a certain style of music and you're like, I like that kind of music. Well, that's good. But can you imagine if you go to can you imagine going to a buffet and you got a whole long tray, like a whole thing full of food from all over the world. You got American food, you got soul food, you got Indian food, you got Chinese food, you got Pakistani food, like all kinds of Japanese food. And like, well, I only like this. And like, oh, you poor soul, look at all this good food. I mean, you can't eat it all now, obviously. You're going to get sick if you try to take it all in, but have a little bit of this, have a little tiny bit of that, sit down, chill for a little bit, get up, check out, let's see what's going on down here, So it's the same thing with music. I think that I hope people are always curious enough to listen to all of these different ways that people around the world express themselves, It's beautiful to experience all of these different types of music other than simply the music that you're accustomed to hearing, Be curious. When you learn about other types of music, you learn about other types of people. You learn about other types of people. You learn about different types of cultures, different ways, different ways of thinking. You become bigger. Your mind becomes bigger. Your heart becomes bigger, So I think that's how music can change the world.
Thank you, Mr. McBride. That definitely was inspiring. And thanks everyone for listening to episode 2 of the In the Mix podcast. Keep an eye out for the next one. This is London, signing out.
The creators of this podcast are Gia, Bennett, Zara, London, Anthony, Ann, Riley, and myself, Kashara. The facilitators are Spencer, Janaea, Antonella, Ro, Veronica, and Priscilla. We'd like to thank our guests, Christian McBride and the New Jersey Performing Arts Center. Bye!
Now for a commercial. One day, a mom listened to a podcast called In the Mix.
Women traditionally don't play bata. It is not allowed to be played by women. And so when I first started playing these drums, it was really taboo for me to play them. Like I had literally arguments. And I tell you, like I come from Brooklyn, so I'm pretty tough, but those arguments were pretty like, all I want to do is play a drum. Like, why is that such a big deal? But there was a whole belief system around it. And so I had to also know how to navigate through that and take accountability.
This is so good. You can have your kids join too. My daughter will love this.
Sometime later, the mom approaches her daughter.
I just listened to this wonderful podcast and learned that you can join their program.
Okay, and?
You're gonna do it. It's for kids and teens every Saturday.
Nah, I don't want to do it. I'd rather walk the dog and pick up its poop.
They have snacks too.
Snacks? I'm there.
The daughter goes to the class and surprisingly enjoys it.
That program was so much fun. The snacks were only a bonus. I'm going to tell all my friends.
I told you you would like it.
At school, the girl finds her friends to tell them all about In the Mix.
Guys, I went to this really cool social justice program at NJPAC. It was so awesome.
What is it called?
In the Mix.
Sounds dumb.
Maybe it's actually fun.
It actually is. You get to show your talents and talk about important things happening in the real world, so you can truly express how you feel.
I do want to get some things off my chest.
There's some things about the school that I like to talk about. You know what? I'll give it a try.
Me too.
If you want to be the next voice of In the Mix, go to www.njpac.org. Just type in the search bar In the Mix and sign up your kid and teen today.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. He lied to you guys, and it's a Q&A. Do you guys have any questions for us? Come to the mic so we can hear you properly. Thank you.
Hello. Hi, In the Mixers. While doing this podcast, what inspired you to become an activist? Were you an activist before this?
So, funny story. When I was very young, I would say I would be a triple threat, quadruple threat. I would call myself a singer, dancer, actor, scientist, and I would make sure to always add I'm an activist. So I've always seen myself as somebody who could stand up for other people, especially in school when they would have those bullying conferences. And I joined in the mix. Actually, my mother joined me in the mix, like the commercial, hey mom. So to see what I can do to help the world. The podcast sounded interesting. I ended up being the host in the first podcast, and I'm a host again for the second one. And I can see how we can change the world, how people are just listening in like, oh, man, like I saw y'all in the audience like, interesting, wow. That's so deep. Like, that's how people see it. And I'm like, the more people who see that, the more people who feel that way, is more people who will think about it and start making a change in the world. So even though if we're not physically doing something right now, we are encouraging other people to do something physically. And I feel like an activist is somebody who does it and encourages other people to do it. So I would call myself an activist.
Hi, so I became an activist because I saw problems within my community and my school, especially with discrimination, and I wanted to try to help.
I want to first say congratulations on such a wonderful presentation and showing up and showing out that the way that you have. You guys are so insightful. I want to know, now that you've been exposed to art as activism, how do you think that you, moving forward, are going to use that in your life as an artist? How are you going to take what you've learned and apply it?
Personally, I use activism every time I write a poetry. I personally have like a little book and everything, and NJPAC has really helped me be able to just express the feelings and like standing up for people. I always stood up for people before, but I feel like I currently like understand both sides, like because we have a lot of talks about like different things, and I feel like I used to only think about like my side, but like talking to other people about the things that's going on in the world, it's helped me to understand like maybe they're the person that's showing hate is going through something too. It doesn't say that what their actions, we're not like excusing their actions or like saying, oh yeah, they did this, like that's okay. But it's good to know both point of views.
First, guys, I want to say you did an awesome job. We really, really enjoyed it. So my question is, for all of you, what was your favorite part about interviewing and meeting Christian McBride?
When I learned I was meeting Christian McBride, at first I was like, ooh, famous people, snobby, can't with them. But like, I'm going to be famous one day, so I don't know what to talk about. But when I met him, I was like, oh, he's pretty chill. He's a regular person in the real life world. And it was cool taking pictures to him. I took my grandmother to his show for her birthday. She enjoyed herself very much. I enjoyed it very much. I was like, oh, jazz, interesting. I like it. But, I think my favorite part of meeting him was just showing how some people say, don't meet your idols because they're not like you think they will be. And I feel like he really just was like, no, we're regular people. We're chill. Okay? That's my favorite part.
Okay, so my question is not really a question. It's just a request. So I was wondering if you guys could do an episode on like bullying. Because I just want you guys to like share your opinion on it and influence it to not happen.
As a parent, we just want to thank you for everything that you have poured into our children. They are more expressive at home. They are thinking critically about things. And even if they're still shy a little bit, a lot of them are growing in ways that they don't even understand now. And we truly appreciate it. So thank you so much.
I just truly want to thank everybody that's in here. If I don't know you personally, if I do know you personally, I just really want to thank you for coming here to seeing us and support supporting everybody on the stage, everybody in this room, even if they're not a part of In the Mix, if they're in any NJPAC program, if they're just in the world walking down the street. I just want to thank you for supporting everybody. And the more good you are putting out in the world, the more good that you're giving back. Please think about all of the social issues that we talked about today, that you hear somebody talking about down the street, that you're talking about with your family. And please, in any way you can possible, please put your word and your activism out there. And we love you all, and we thank you all for coming out here and for just enjoying this podcast.
Awesome. Thank you, London.
Thanks. Bye.